Hi, welcome to the Crook County Foundation's What's Brewing online edition. My name is Brandy Ebner. I'm the executive director, and we're joined today by Cheryl Seely, who is our Crook County Clerk. Hi, Cheryl. How are you?
Great, how are you?
I'm doing well on a blurry day outside. I'm like, yesterday felt like summer, so I was ready for today to be gorgeous out.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to have you join us today because there has been so much, well, truthfully, controversy in elections and ballots for quite a while now, but especially in the last few months. And I think folks are interested in getting to know how does the process work because there's so much misinformation out there. And I wanted to hear from you right here in Crook County of how our process works.
Okay.
So can you start off by telling us a little bit about what is the process you guys go through to send out the ballots and kind of that timeline?
Sure. So I think what a lot of people don't realize is pretty much all of the Crook County elections or elections that ballots that go out to the Crook County voters, everything happens here in the clerk's office. We don't send anything to Salem. They're not counted anywhere. It all happens right here. So, and of course, our process is ongoing all year long, not just real close to election time with registering voters and preparing for elections. But I think most of our elections really kick off about 2 months prior to election day. They start out with, and now I'm going to start that as a timeline, but that's usually about the last day for the candidates to file. So once the candidates have all filed, we've passed that deadline, then we begin processing all of the candidates and make sure that we've got everything that we need to put on a ballot because we start ballot design. I actually design the ballots here in the office. We use a tabulation system. It's from Clear Ballot, but there's Clear Count, Clear Ballot, and Clear Design is all part of this program. So through the Clear Design program, I actually lay out the ballot. So we have our OCVR, which is the Oregon Centralized Voter Registration System. That's what we daily keep track of everybody's voter records on. We actually will download from that a list of all of the candidates statewide and federal, and we'll bring that into our system as well. And then I take that back and put that into the Clear Design system and lay the ballot out. So, and that ballot layout can vary. This last time, we didn't have a lot of ballot styles as what it appeared to. We have 17 precincts, so we have at least 17 different ballot styles with each precinct, but then we'll have multiple styles within a precinct. So I think we had like 58 ballot styles.
Oh, wow.
So we have to lay all of those out, then we print them and we run, once we're comfortable with what we've got, then we run what we call a test deck. So we will randomly mark some of these ballots and run them through the count system just to make sure that they're tabulating correctly. We check that with hand count. So once the ballot design is done, all the proofing's done, the first test passes everything, then we send that off to the printer. And Writer Elections out of Bend is the one that prints our ballots. That's usually done about 45 days prior to the election. At that time, we also send a data file to Bend Mailing, and Bend Mailing is the one that actually is the mail house that mails our ballots out for us. And so that data file is all of the current registered voters, their precinct, their ballot style, their address. We send that to them. They can sort those according to the way they need to be mailed out, as far as the post office has, ways they do that. And then Writer will print those ballots, and then we go in. I go in to Bend Mailing when the ballots arrive, usually about, I'm going to say it's about 3 weeks prior to the election day. And well, actually it's 3 weeks prior to the day that we can mail out is when we do. And we're one of the first counties to do this insert process. And I sit and watch that insertion process just for safety reasons, just to make sure that the ballots are coming out of the box and going in, and then they're all getting sorted like they're supposed to with the right address and that sort of thing. So through the mail house. And then they bundle those all up and then shrink wrap them, and then they sit them in a secure place until mailing day. And then we have somebody that watches the transport from Bend Mailing to the post office and get them on the way. So they're under full security the whole time. And I have security agreements written with all of these companies that are involved. So, but prior to that, about 45 days prior to election day, we actually send out our military and overseas ballots. So that's actually even before I go to bin mailing for the insert. So things happen pretty early. So we get those sent out. 29 days before the election, all of the ballots go out to anybody outside of Oregon that's, like our snowbirds or any of those that are traveling. We send those out. And then 21 days before election day is usually the last day to register or change your party. So this becomes key with that data file that we've already sent to bin mailing. Is already got your address, it's already got your party affiliation. But then 21 days before the election, if you change at the last minute, that can possibly generate a second ballot for you. That first one will be void. The second one will come to you, but sometimes people end up getting two, and we'll explain that about a little bit later. So, and then 20 days before the election is our first day to mail ballots. We actually have about a week-long period by statute that we can mail those, and we always mail on the first day. And then 14 days before the election, of course, is the last day that we can technically mail them. And then we have election day. A lot happens on election day. And then we have a 14-day challenge period after the election. And then 20 days after the election, we can certify the results. And then 23 days after, we do a hand count. So kind of a whole, timeline of that, a lot happens with those ballots. A lot happens here in the office. So
I had no idea. I mean, it's so easy to think like, well, you print them and you mail them and then people send them back. And like any of our jobs, it looks easy to someone who doesn't know the intimate details, but I had no idea there were that many steps involved. And it's wonderful to know that we have county officials kind of involved with every step of it too. So one of the questions that come up, and I know this year it was very controversial, is how can people either not get a ballot at all or receive one saying they're a registered Democrat when they're actually Republican, or vice versa, or any of the other parties? Because I know it seemed very controversial this year that people were saying they were getting ballots for different parties than what they were registered as. So one of those would be if someone changed last minute, as you mentioned.
Correct. So first of all, if they didn't receive a ballot, there's probably a good chance that we have them, if they're pretty sure that they were registered, there's a good chance that they're inactive in our system. So inactive doesn't necessarily mean that they're not registered. It just means they're not active enough for us to get a ballot because we don't have some current information for them. So if you've moved and we've mailed something to you like a ballot in a prior election and we got it returned back to us, we go in and inactivate you because we don't know where you're at. So we do get updates from the DMV. We get updates from the post office. We get updates from an ERIC program, which is kind of, a lot of states participate in it, but not every state. So if you moved out of state or, that sort of thing, that's where we get that information. So we get that pretty regularly, but usually that's the case. Is if somebody comes in and says, I didn't get it, we look them up and we find out, oh, well, this is the address we had for you, and come to find out that was, oh, I've moved, didn't get my address updated, or I thought I updated it and I didn't. Updating your address is very easy. When you do move, you should always double check with us. You can either come to our office. We've got voter registration cards currently in the hallway in the lobby beside our door. You can fill those out and leave it in a Dropbox. Or you can go online. You can go on to the Secretary of State's website. There's a My Votes section. You can update your information there. Or there is a link through the Crook County website as well to get to that. So, but that's usually why people don't get them. Now, there was a lot of controversy this time about mail not getting delivered and things like that. We do, and I can't explain that. We do have people that come in that didn't get a ballot. We look up their information. Everything's correct. We sent a ballot and it just doesn't arrive to them. So, but we can void that one and reissue it with not a problem. So it just takes a little bit of time for us to do that. And they can contact us via phone or email too for that reissue on that, as long as nothing's changed, and we can generate another one for them. So
you mentioned void that ballot. Is each ballot, I notice there's always those little black marks down the side and such. Is that something that kind of can track so that every ballot only comes through one time, so you can actually somehow void a ballot that's floating around out there?
Sort of. So the little black marks down the side are actually called timing marks, and that's what the tabulator uses to know which races to count, where the marks are.
Oh.
So the ballot itself isn't marked. It's actually your outside envelope. My
Mhm.
lighting's bad. But anyway, when it prints your address on it, above your address, there's a series of numbers in different places. One of those numbers, of course, is your voter ID number. The other one is what we call a ballot ID number. So technically, it's actually just tracking this outside envelope with the orange on it, not the ballot inside of it. So if it gets somewhere, and I think the biggest thing is people sometimes will maybe not, well, they won't get that one, or they get that one and then they've already requested I didn't get it, and so they get a second one, and then that first one shows up, and then they're confused on which one do I do. She said one was going to be void. I don't know which one is void. Just vote one of them and send it back to us. If it comes back to us and it happens to be the void one, we will hold on to it just to make sure you don't send the second one, because you can't vote twice, and that's a whole other story. So, but then once we make sure that you have only voted once, we can reactivate that voided one, so we can run it through the process and count it. So we have lots of processes. There's chapters in the ORS and Oregon Administrative Rule. There's chapters 246 to 260 in the Oregon Administrative Rule addresses that, and that's this.
Wow.
Here.
Sounds like, so the big thing is
and other things, but that's a big, there's tons of election laws and processes that we follow. So
yeah, people just need to communicate with you. It sounds like your office, they just need to call you up.
Contact us. That's the biggest thing. We'll make sure that, we do get it, because we get hundreds back from the post office. We assume that when they say they're undeliverable, that the address is changed, then the address is changed, but we don't process that address change until after the election. There's just not time I have one staff member that works elections. So it's me and Barb. That's it. So, and the wrong party. So the wrong party makes a difference in the primary election. That's the only election it really makes a difference in, because it is a nominating election in Oregon. You are nominating a member of your party to be on the ballot for November. So you also receive, nonpartisan offices, like our county offices are all nonpartisan. You'll receive those, and those can be elected at that time. But the nonpartisan ones will be on there as well. So if you are a Republican, you're going to get a Republican ballot. Democrat, you get a Democrat ballot. Those are the two major parties. Independent party, not a member of a party, any of the minor parties all get the nonpartisan ballot. So there will not be president on there. There will not be governor on there, all of those partisan offices. So that's kind of a confusing thing for a lot of people. They don't understand, or they're coming from another state where those primaries are open, and it's different in Oregon. So if you do change your party from when we send our data file to the mail house up until the time you can change your party, and there's usually a period of time in there, you will get your first ballot, which may be non-affiliated. And then if you changed and say you went to a Democrat ballot, then we will generate and send you the Democrat ballot. And that's kind of why that happened. So we did have several people in this last primary call and say, I've been registered with this party for this many years, and that's not the ballot I got. So we will investigate every one of those. We go back and look, and every one that I investigated, we had a voter registration card where they had checked the party for the ballot that we sent them. It wasn't like they remembered. A few people would say, oh yeah, I remember now, I changed it because of this. So, but call us and let us know. We want to make sure if there is something happening somewhere and there is some fraud happening, we need to investigate that. And we don't know until you call us and let us know.
Right.
So call us and let us know. We'll investigate it to the extent we can. And then we will send it on to further authorities if we need to. Yeah. And we have had to do that. So, and
I've told people, open your ballot as soon as you get it, even if you're not going to vote that minute. I mean, I voted, I opened it, voted, and put it back in the mail. But even if you're not going to vote that moment, when it gets in, open it, because if there is an issue, then you have time to contact you. Right. If you wait until election day and then expect you to magically change their ballot for them, that gets a lot more difficult. Right. So look early, make sure that there's issues, you can take care of it and address it in your office.
Changes on election day, it's just
crazier.
Kind of a crazy day in here.
It's
busy, and lots of things going on, so you may have a little bit of a wait. So the earlier you can figure that out, the better.
So speaking of returning ballots, I know our county, I personally deliver it because I'm in town all the time. So I deliver it behind the courthouse. There's a couple other places where people can do that if they don't want to mail it. I know this year mail, and it was no one's fault other than COVID, is that mail was so backed up. I got a package yesterday that I ordered the first week of December that had been lost until yesterday. So there's ways for people to hand deliver it to know it's going to be counted for sure.
Correct. So you can't always return it by mail. Oregon went to postage paid on your return ballot, so it doesn't cost you a stamp to put it in the mail. But there were a lot of people this time, and I think our numbers were a lot higher. I didn't end up running those final numbers, but a lot of people, I mean, the majority of them did drop in a drop box. So we always have the drop box on the back of the courthouse. Always, it's 24 hours a day. It's under security. We check it periodically throughout the day, usually about every hour, every 2 hours. Check it in the evenings. I check it multiple times on the weekend. So your ballot's not sitting there for an extended period of time. We do have the same drop box on the front of the Powell Butte School. And that one also is under camera and it's under light. It's 24 hours a day. It's a walk up the steps. It's just to the left of the door. And then we did one this time at the library. The library, we've always done it inside, but because of COVID and then being closed, we actually put a drive-up one on the south end of the parking lot. And again, it's 24 hours a day under security. So it's something that, and that one we checked regularly as well. So all of them we check as regularly as we can. We always have where you can bring it into the courthouse. We have a secure box right to the left of our door. It can be dropped in there. We even had people knock on the door because we're by appointment only and actually hand us the ballot. And that was fine too. You know, whatever, but once we gather them, they're here. So once we gather them, then we put them in batches of about 100 and we log them as to which drop box they came in or if they came in through the mail. And then my election deputy checks the signature on every single one of them to your record. And if your signature doesn't match, then we send you something that says your signature doesn't match, or if you forgot to sign it. So there's a process for that too. So
once you get them, they're in your office, they're securely stored. When do you actually start? I mean, you start the process, it sounds like immediately verifying that the signatures and such. When does the actual counting of the votes start?
So by a security plan that we have to file and by statute, we can only start that process, even opening and extracting the ballots out 7 days prior to the election. So 7 days prior to the election, I have at a board that I call an opening board. It's 4 members. They're Crook County residents, they're registered voters, and they are from mixed parties. I have a couple from the same party, but I mix them. So, and with COVID, we actually had 2 back here in my office from different parties and 2 back in the election room so they could be spaced. They can start opening and they open them, they count the number of envelopes that they open with the number that should be in that batch just to make sure we're consistent and nothing's getting, missed somewhere. And then once that number is consistent, then they put the envelopes to the side, they box them up, then they'll open the security envelopes and lay the ballots out. They flatten the ballots out, bundle the security envelopes up, set those in another box, and then they actually count the physical number of ballots that they have, and that should match the number of envelopes they had and the number on the batch. So we're consistent with our numbers, so there's always a tracking. And then they bundle them with that batch number on them, put them back in a box and put them on a shelf, and they're all in a secured room the whole time, and they're under camera. And then we can actually start running through the tabulator or through the scanner on that 7th day. So Barb and I do that, my election deputy. We'll go back and do that kind of in the latter part of the day once the election board has left or the opening board has left. We will start running them through the machine. When we run them through that machine, we have nothing turned on that tells us who got what votes. That's a password protected, multiple password protected feature. And I will turn that on, but I don't turn that on until 8 p.m. election night. So we can scan 7 days prior to, I know how many ballots we've scanned, so I can make sure that the scanner didn't feed 2 at a time or anything like that. We make sure that always balances all the way through. And then 8 p.m. on election night, I can run the first report, download that to the election night reporting system on our website, on the state site, and issue that to anybody in the public. And that's the first time we get to see anything.
Mm-hmm. So they can't get a hold of you for any secret information.
No,
you don't have it.
And I actually have the authority to do that. I could turn that on and print those and just not release them to anybody. But if you can't know, I can't know. That's only fair.
Right.
Nobody should know anything.
You need to know anyway. So tell me, I've heard you tell this story before. When people fill out their ballot nicely, so they fill in the bubble correctly with the right color of ink, it's probably easy for the system. What happens when one, they don't do that? They do the bubble weird or something. And then the write-ins, how many Donald Ducks and Mickey Mouses and random friends get write-in nominations, and what does that do to your system?
Oh, we get too many of those. So we have our system now, this clear ballot actually scans the entire ballot, not just the channels where those are marked. So the system will automatically adjudicate and tell you, it will put the correct votes where they go. If a bubble isn't filled out all the way, or they've marked the ballot, they've had several nice dark bubbles, but then one, they maybe only put a line in or a check mark in. Something is inconsistent. The machine knows that, and it's going to put it into we kind of call it an adjudicated bucket. So it'll go ahead and count it as a vote for a particular person, but then it's going to put it into a less likely to be a vote for that person. And so what happens, same with the write-ins. So what happens is on the day after election, and we are still in that 14-day challenge period, but after we ran every ballot, then my staff and I will sit down at this computer and we will look at any ballot that it couldn't read and see if that's something that we can physically read and mark, and we do that. And then we also look to see, we look at all of those less likely to be. So I can actually pull up on the computer screen every one of those, kind of the box where the mark is, every single one of those we can look, and we spent days looking at that stuff. So just to make sure that the voter intent was what the machine read. So
Right.
for the most part, everything got read correctly. The ones that throw us off are the overvotes, when they vote for two people or they vote for that candidate. And then in the write-in part, they fill that in and then they write the candidate's name again. We know that's their intent, but it puts it into an overvote. So we have to make sure it counts as a vote, and we have to clean that up. So if the write-in, it goes into, and we see all kinds of things on the write-ins. We
Oh, I'm
see
sure.
every cartoon character, we see their neighbor, their themselves, I don't know. But then we also saw a lot of comments in there too. So we have to go through and make sure that those write-ins are technically what we call a write-in. And Mickey Mouse, even though it's not an actual person, it is considered a miscellaneous write-in. But if you wrote none of the above, I don't want to vote for anybody, whatever you write in there, that isn't an actual write-in. So we have to go through and look at every single one of those and make sure that it didn't tally it as a write-in, because it's not a write-in. So, and then there was one race that we actually did have to count write-ins because no candidate filed. So then we have to go through and actually put those in. But it's all done with both of us. We're different parties watching a computer screen. We kind of go in and adjudicate all of those, and that takes a lot of time. So yeah, if folks would be serious about their write-ins and actually write in a candidate that they want to write in, great. But if you don't have a candidate to write in, just
the extra comments and things, I know you feel like it's your way of saying your opinion, but it's really not helpful.
No.
First of all, it does nothing, and second of all, it just slows down our election process and slows your time down. So I would encourage people to only use the write-ins when it's
a true write-in.
True write-in.
It's me and one other person that sees that comment. So it's not like it's, going out for everybody to see. It's not something that I keep track of this, this many people said this or that. It doesn't.
Right. So my last kind of thought, because you've covered so much, this has been extremely informative, is how do people get involved? You mentioned you had an open board. Do you have other actual positions that people can volunteer for?
So I usually use 6 people, and that could change as our voter registration numbers increase. Just depends on what we need. But currently I have an opening board that's 4 members. And then I have 2 ballot drop boxes, the one at the library and the one out at Powell Butte, that somebody has to be there at 8 p.m. on election night to gather the ballots and close the box. And so this year we actually had them accompanied by a sheriff's deputy. So as long as I have that, there's still 2 people going out to the box, and that's great. If we end up where we don't use the sheriff's deputy, I will want 2 people for that. So my 6 could grow to 8. it just depends. But if anybody's interested in volunteering, contact me, contact the office. We like just something in writing from you that tells us a little bit about you and why you want to volunteer. And then we can kind of, potentially work you into the mix. A lot of my board members have been board members almost as long as I've been alive. So it's kind of hard to, I do want to train new ones over time, but they've been doing it so long and they work so well together and they're so efficient. They know the laws, they know the rules, they know what they're supposed to do. And it runs really smoothly. So I'm really thankful to have those folks. But I would like to bring new people in as well. And when I'm hitting on the lines with volunteers, so you can observe. Anybody can observe at any time. While we're under COVID, that's a little bit more restricted. We did do live broadcasts this last time. We did them on the YouTube platform, and we live streamed both rooms where the ballots were at. There's no audio. It's from a camera in the ceiling, so it's not like you can see what people are voting. You have a hard time even seeing words on anything, even on big signs that I tried to print and hold up to the camera to show people. It didn't help. But so there is an observation process if somebody wants to do that. Hopefully we won't be under the COVID restrictions for too terribly many more months, and then people can actually come in and watch the process. But they can come in anytime, and if they want to see where I keep things, what the tabulator looks like, I have certain security protocols I have to be really careful with where they go and what they can access. But right now, all of that stuff's in storage. We have to keep all of the ballots and everything for 2 years in sealed containers. So that's all stored under multiple locks and storage. So, but so people could tour the office.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you'd want to share with people about your position or what happens with our ballots and our elections? Because this has been,
I think one thing that kind of was new to us this year, and this is kind of a big thing that I think a lot of people will appreciate is there were so many questions about how accurate are those tabulators? Are they really tabulating what's on the ballot? So we do, like I said, at the test deck in the beginning, before we send to the printer, we create these ballots and then we mark them and we hand tally them and then we run them through the tabulator to make sure it matches our hand tally. We do that after they come back from the printer. We do another test deck, same type of idea. We double check all of those. We do that test deck one more time at a public certification of our tally equipment, and that has to be done just right before we start tallying on the 7 days prior. And then once we're all done with everything past the challenge period, then we test it one more time and make sure it's consistent and it's spot on every time. We had this year was our first, and it's in statute now. It was something that was passed. Every primary and general election, we will automatically do a hand count. So the secretary, not everything, but the Secretary of State will send us a sampling of which batches we need to pull and which races or measure we have to hand count. And then we hand count those. And this year, when we hand counted, I think I had 5 different batches that we had to hand count. We hand counted multiple races and then one of the measures. And then we have to report that back. And everything that we counted was exact to what the tabulator said. So, there's lots of double check and triple check and double check, and and it's a hand count versus a machine count and that sort of thing. So I'm very confident that what the voters voted is what got tallied, and that's what we reported.
Yeah, at least for our county, that. So, and I would assume that the process you've explained on this is probably extremely similar in every other county across our nation. So you can guarantee that, but it sounds like a pretty secure, solid process is being done. And so I know that this has helped me learn a lot more about our local election, but I would hope this also helps our residents as they've heard the controversy and just been kind of curious how much of it is truth. I would hope this clears up a lot of information and gets folks to understand how it all works and to know that you work very hard for not just 1 week a year. It's a long process. If
anybody has questions at any time through the process, even when we're really not knee deep in elections, if they have questions and don't understand, and I'm hearing this reported on the news, and can you confirm this, whatever, call me, email me. I took a lot of questions this time, way before we actually really got going on elections, just because of so much in the media. And I have no problem explaining our process and showing you stuff, helping folks understand the laws and what we do. And I can do that for Oregon process, because all the Oregon counties are, we're all the same. We're all under the same statute. I know different states do have some different processes. They're not all vote by mail, that sort of thing. So, I can't give you, information too much about what happens in other states, but any information in Oregon, any questions you have, any concerns you have, let me know.
Cheryl's always got an open door, and I know she responds quickly to people. So we just thank you so much for taking the time to join us on What's Brewing Online. And hopefully this has helped a lot of people just better understand the process. And we appreciate everything that you and Barb and your volunteers do. I'm sure it builds up to a very grueling few days of massive amount of work to make sure that everything is secure and that our county citizens' opinions and votes get counted correctly. So we appreciate that. And thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.